Live.
But I was being good. I was singing quietly.
Right, let's go. This is Literary Roadhouse, one short story once a week. I'm Gerald.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Anais.
And today's story is And It Is My Fault by Janet Towle. I hope that's how you pronounce it. The story won the Carve magazine Fall, or as we say here, Autumn short story competition. So I'll do that again. Sorry.
Little snark got you tripped up, huh?
I know.
Making fun of our fall instead of autumn.
Reliving that Facebook thread where we argued about fall and autumn.
Falls.
That should be the show notes, that argument.
Yeah. Right, let's be sensible. Today's story is And It Is My Fault by Janet Towle. The story won the Carve magazine Fall short story competition. The main character is Patricia, known as PJ, who's born into a family that suffers from an apparent curse, that members of the family get their skin punctured in a definitive sequence of ways. Her life is described as a sequence of events which follows the supposed curse. Short and sweet today.
Very
short and sweet. So top level.
Well,
we've had a little bit of time to sit with this story because we did postpone the show. So most of us have read this story more than once. How'd you guys feel about this story?
I liked it a lot. I think I still don't understand it, but that's my fault rather than the stories, because it's very, very good.
At first, I loved it, and then I downgraded to liked it a lot.
I still love it. I loved it in the beginning. I still love it now. But this is I think this is one of the short stories that Ray Bradbury kind of whined about when he was like, where's the plot? It's really about characters. So if you love that, if you love this, look at characters in this family, it's really good. There's a lot of meat. But it isn't, you're not chasing some huge, plot heavy arc. So I guess, reader beware. I don't know.
You know what? I like stories that are all about character, but characters have to do something, and characters have things happen to them. And I also like ambiguous stories. You know me, I like a fuzzy ending. I like not knowing necessarily everything that's going on, but this ending, I had some issues with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
What's funny? The ending isn't even really something I feel like the beginning and the middle of the story is where the bulk of the meat is, and by the time that PJ sort of runs off, I'm okay, you know what I mean? That was such a foregone conclusion. I think that by the time you get there, you're I was divested in that, but.
Okay, because that's interesting, because I assumed that I was missing something from the story, but apparently not. So I think if you guys agree, then yeah.
My biggest issue with the story is, okay, I don't necessarily have an issue with us not being told what this quote-unquote curse is. Yes, their skin gets punctured, but to what end? It must be horrible, the way that they're overprotecting the children and everyone's worried about it, and the way they count off who's done what, who's had what happened to them so far. But at no time did I feel like the mother's death was tied to it. At no time did I feel like anyone's life was in danger because of it. And by the end, I kind of felt why do I care? Which made me feel manipulated, because I wanted to keep reading because I wanted to see what in the world was going on, but then I never got that. And so I did feel like the writer was keeping something away from me on purpose rather than just coming out with it. And that's something that usually with ambiguous endings, I don't feel manipulated, but in this one I did.
That's interesting, because I don't think there's a curse, so that's, I don't think there's any curse or magical realism or anything going on here like that. And the author, the narrator, PJ, hints at that when she's but there's some people in the family who think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're cataloging things in the order of the curse. And that occurred over and over, where there was a list of all the things that are common in the family, gleaming hair, having daughters, some are genetic, some are nurture. But then there's other things that, she says, but no one for some reason zeroed in on this, the way that everyone sort of chops their hands when they're angry and making a point. And there was this way where the family, in order to unite itself, starts cataloging and picking on certain traits and then being like, this is what unites us. And I think because I have a big family and in my family we do this, that really resonated with me, where it's like, these are traits, good and bad, that are like common throughout all the concepciones, you know? So I think that just for me felt like, yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, I think for me, like you, I don't necessarily think there's a curse, but at the same time, I felt like the way the children were treated was more than just cataloging of events that don't actually do any harm. I felt like maybe there was a medical issue. Maybe something comes up after a certain amount of time and they're cataloging these nonsensical things because, you know, in this family at age 40, they all get Alzheimer's or whatever. But I didn't get that sense either. And I think that it took away from that theme that you were talking about, which I think was an amazing theme. And I think was one of the strong parts of the story, along with the writing, which I know we're going to get to, because, oh my God, the words and the orders of the words and all the words.
So good.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What word fairy stood on her shoulder was like, these words go in this order, because I need that word fairy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you said that, because I thought I wasn't getting it. I thought the quality of the writing meant that the quality of the story was way up there and was above my sort of pay grade. And I've read it three and a half, you know, skimmed it an extra time, and I thought, what am I not getting? What am I not getting? And I think I'm not getting something that isn't actually there. So there's something intangible about the story. There's some thread, or there's something that isn't there, or we're missing, and it's kind of frustrating. And it's, you know, I was happy just being ignorant on me, and I thought, the other guys will tell me all about it.
I think it's interesting you say that, because we talk about this a lot when stories start slow, or when stories start in a way that doesn't immediately grab you, which is not the case in this story because the language grabs you. But a lot of times we say the writing is so good that I'll give this writer, you know, a length of rope because I trust the writer. The language is so good, I have to trust the writer. And in this case, the language is that good that you want to trust the writer. And therefore, I felt a resistance to feeling let down. It was this feeling of, like you said, Gerald, what am I not getting? Because the writing's so good that must be there. And for me, it wasn't, but the writing was so good, I expected it to be. And therefore, I took on a little bit of self-blame for that. And I think we're not stupid people. And we've read a lot more short stories than the average reader. The average reader doesn't read short stories, and if they do read short stories, it's maybe 1 or 2 a year. So for us to have issues with the story, I feel like this is why I wanted Rami on here, because I feel like a regular reader would have even more issues with it than we did.
Yeah. Although I do think the reason I brought up the Ray Bradbury thing is because I do think this is one of those stories that's just really like, I get this sometimes where I'll get an idea for a short story. I'm like, it's not really an idea for a short story. It's me being like a pop chair psychologist that observes something in nature. And I'm like, how do I put this in a story? You know what I mean? Where I'm like, that's kind of what this feels like. Like, she has these really good insights into family, how things get passed down, what we focus on, how we relate to each other, that feels so real and so honest. But then it's like, well, how do you make a story out of this? Like, that's, you know, and I've been there.
I've been there. That's how, you know, Sunset at Congo Square started. It was an idea that, like, a lot of the stories that I write start out as ideas. But at the same time, we do ding stories like that on this show. But I don't think we've ever had a story that felt like just an idea that was this well freaking written. You know, usually when a story is just an idea and there's no story there, or it's competently written, it's not this good. And that's the conundrum, because let's just get right into it. The writing, frankly, is amazing.
Yeah.
The
very first paragraph, there was a line where I was like, what?
Yeah. Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it? Because I got it up.
Well, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to see if it's the same one.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. She could see her father wrapped in a sheet, blithely leaving thumbprints on the glass near her forehead, ever after 6 inches off in his ability to connect, but well-intentioned, always well-intentioned. I love that line.
That is a good line. For me, it was the very first line that got me. It was written, the punctuate. Okay, we've talked about me and my artistic punctuation. Okay, like my little bit of learning grammar late has lent me this fascination, almost fetishistic quality of when I see grammar used in an artistic way. George Saunders does this quite a bit. This lady does this. There's like some dashes and some colons and just stuff just in places that are amazing, and they're in the right places. So the first line, sometimes PJ imagined herself as an embryo floating in a tempered glass tube in a laboratory somewhere off the coast of Northern California, imagining the blank-faced string pullers of the universe pausing to give her parents, having been magically transported to the potentiality at the moment of conception, a disclaimer. You know, if you take this one, she'll be a true Bouchard. I'm just like, what the hell?
That's very good. It's so
good. It is beautiful. And it's poetic, which is something you guys mentioned. There's a lot of poetics in the story. There's a lot of repetition. There is a lot of reflection. There's a lot of rhythm in certain parts of the story without rhyming, without anything like that. One moment. I'm recording. A lot of rhythm. And it lends itself to this feeling of this rolling, enveloping feeling of the story coming over you in a way that I get when I read a lot of poetry. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, and I think that opening sentence is a huge, long sentence too, and it's very brave to open with such a long sentence. While you were talking, I was just looking to see if there was an analysis, and up on Google comes up discussing this Janet Towle. I thought, oh, good, and it was us. It was maybe I'll get some insight. Nah.
Sorry, little insight here. And the other thing that I noticed was there was a lot of symbolism. There's a ton of symbolism. There are parts of the story that were reminiscent of old fairy tales. I mean, the obvious one is Sleeping Beauty. That's obvious. There were also points of the story that had to do with the 478, the counting down, the constant counting down of when she's been punctured, with what has she been punctured, and then periodically she would be counting just randomly, but it wasn't random. And again, it lent that quality. It was very, very well done and very poetic.
So maybe the Sleeping Beauty thing isn't that obvious, and we should get into what you mean by that for like listeners.
Well, I mean, from the story, you have a family where all the descendants are preoccupied with this idea that everyone in the family gets punctured with certain things in a certain order. I think it's needles, and then glass, and then like nails, and a knife. And as it happens, you know, the mothers will say, so have you had it yet? Have you been punctured yet? And what I found interesting is originally, like, instantly that brought to mind Sleeping Beauty in the attic, puncturing her finger on a spinning wheel. Like, that is the classic fairy tale. And because it starts off with these sisters who all have long weaving hair, it definitely had that little bit of reflection on that. And then as it goes through time, it goes from them stepping on a needle in their sewing room, which, by the way, if this is a thing, why are they sewing? But regardless, stepping on a needle in their sewing room, to becoming teenagers and wanting to get piercings and wanting to get tattoos, and how this old, like, family mythology translates into the new world with teenagers was very, very interesting and well done.
And the other thing is, I like that the first one is a needle specifically, because there's the threading, the stitching, and the sewing of like the family together. Like, it has like this is the thread between all of them. You know what I mean? Especially because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you're looking for this. So if you get cut by a knife first, it doesn't count. You only start counting when it's a needle. You know what I mean? Like, there's this effect to which, like, I think all of us have probably been pricked by a needle, a knife, cut by glass. You know what I mean? But but they're looking for it in this specific order to be like, it's real. And there's something about that just felt so true to me. So I feel like I enjoy this story because like I was saying, the pop chair, the armchair, like pop psychology aspect of it is really fascinating to me. Like, I love that part of it.
Yeah, and that is a fascinating part, but I do think there's more there. I do think that in addition to that conversation on family and our family mythology, she's using markers of literary elements of like known literary stories in a way that I think is fascinating. And it does draw you in. But it does set you up to expecting something towards the end that isn't necessarily there. What did you guys think about the counting, the 4, 7, 8? It came up twice, and usually when something comes up twice, it means something. And I couldn't figure out what it meant. I mean, it lent a tone, definitely, but did it actually mean something?
Something to do with childbirth or something?
It came up twice. And I think the first time was when she was doing her Lamaze breathing. And then it came up again later in a different context. I thought that was really interesting. It was the same number, so it wasn't different numbers.
I only remember it in the breathing, though.
I remember it twice.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I also thought that there was an interesting theme of freedom, vigilance, and fault. I mean, it's right in the title. It's all my fault. This comes from her. She says that she feels like it's all her fault, like she's a plague of some sort. I thought that was really interesting. The freedom that she allows her children compared to the aunts that don't allow their kids to be on skateboards and to ride on all these things, versus her child, which she encourages to have that freedom, and which when he comes back with a tattoo, she doesn't say, well, that's number one. I thought that was really interesting. You know, as a parent, there's this feeling that you have to be constantly vigilant. But then again, I remember growing up and I did a whole bunch of not vigilant things, and it gave me strength and it made me who I am. And so this balancing act between giving a child freedom and being vigilant and keeping them from harm, I thought was another theme that was really, really well done in the story.
Yeah, coming back to the 4, 7, 8 thing, I've just been looking back at the story, and it first comes up when she needs to get a vaccination, where she falls over, cuts her knee, and so she's taken to the hospital by Kay, and she's looking around the room, and there's all the numbers: 5'3", 29 years old, all those sort of numbers, and the 4, 7, 8 breathing method just before she gets this injection. And the next time it comes up is when she's wandering around, and towards the end, and she speaks to her son, and he says, "Just don't get a divorce." And she says, "Okay, 4, 7, 8, I won't." So she's controlling her breathing, and then just after that, she gets punctured by the. So
it happens right before, I don't know if there's anything else in both instances.
Yeah.
And 4, 7, 8, like when, you know, I did the count to 3 thing, at least I did when I was, you know, a younger parent, and I would start to lose my shit. 4, 7, 8 is kind of random. Like, you don't start off at 4 and like skip a bunch of numbers. You're like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I thought that was an odd set of numbers.
But isn't that the breathing thing where you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, you exhale for 8?
I don't know. What that is. I didn't learn that.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting here trying to find literary significance, and there's literary significance of 7. There's literary significance of 8, but the literary significance of 7 like counteracts the literary significance of 8. So it just didn't make any sense. I was confused. No, and of course, she's such a great writer. I expected there to be something there because it came up twice.
There is a definitive breathing method which helps sleep and things like that.
Well, there you go. There's the meaning. Thank you for clearing that up, because I was like, is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, no, it's just a breathing trick. It helps induce sleep or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it also speaks to her kind of like anxiety. So like, I think there's also things that are passed down that nobody comments on. But like, for example, the mother is like, I don't want the shadow of my mother and the way she raised me to affect how I raise my kids. And then she feels guilt about how she did it. And then PJ feels the same thing. I don't want this specter of how I would, you know what I mean? Like there's that sort of like unbreakable cycle of these things where everyone feels like the things that had affected them when they were growing up, because Irene, PJ's mother, is sort of like distantly affectionate in a way. And you can see PJ trying not to do that. She's playing Pokemon Go and Harvest Moon with her kid and coloring and doing all of these things. But she is naturally kind of distant. You can see it in her dialogue. You can see it in the way she relates to other people. She always has a bit of a wall up. And it's like this gets passed down anyway in spite of their best efforts. So I like that as well. And that must really suck as a parent, right? Like that.
Yeah, it does actually. All those things you swore you would never do that were super traumatizing to you, and then the first time you hear that coming out of your mouth, it is a full body cringe. It is the worst feeling on the planet. Gerald Snickers. I remember just thinking, oh my God, do that. That was mom. The first time I apologized to 2-year-olds. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It'll happen. Trust me, Annies. It'll happen. Yeah. What I was going to say was, now I lost my thought. Damn it. It was good too. Don't laugh at me, Gerald.
Laughing with you.
Oh, the divorce. I mean, the separation, the conscience uncoupling of this couple. Do you think it was because of the stress of her constant worrying and not being able to enjoy her life and her marriage and her family because she was so preoccupied with not passing this down?
I think it's more than that. I think PJ from the beginning, throughout her childhood and as an adult, she's a dreamer and an escapist. As a kid, she drew herself in multiple universes. As an adult, she kept a very vivid dream journal. And I think but her life follows a kind of ordinary path. She goes to college, she gets a job, she stops doing that when she has a kid and she becomes a freelancer. So like there's a disconnect between her inner world and her outer world. And I think once the kid is out of the house, because this break happens once the kid is out of the house, like when he's still there, she can still kind of escape with him, play with him, pretend, and she has that responsibility of raising a child. But it's kind of like that break that I feel is almost it's like one of those cliches that's cliche for a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's so
there
real.
Is that cliche, but typically it's a cliche because the two parents have been focused so much on raising this kid that they haven't really been focusing on the strength of the marriage at all. The kid always comes first, and then the kid's out of the house and it's like two strangers that are been roommates for 20 years. And then they split up. Like that is the cliche. What is not the cliche, and actually something that I didn't discover until I started Mom Gone Wild, and then all these other empty nesters started telling me, oh yeah, you didn't know? And that is the leaving with glee. The kid leaves the house and you're not crying at college, and all of a sudden you're doing art and you're traveling and you're doing all these things you couldn't do when you had kids. That's something that you don't hear about because moms don't like to admit that. We like to think that we're all a ball of quivering emotions when our kid leaves school and that we're, crushed because our lives should revolve around our children. But this whole like driving all over the US after your kid goes to college is a thing that happens. Gerald?
Yeah, it is the same. And you suddenly realize that you do have a life, and you can have a life, and you can do all this stuff and not sort of have to second guess. So yeah, that does happen. Yeah.
All these women are like, wait until you're 50. Then you don't gotta worry. Then all the wheels come off.
So maybe that's he goes to college and I can do these things I want to do. But there's a reference to when she phones home and speaks to the husband, and she says, "Do you remember?"
I love that part, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it.
So think about the trip to Iceland. Yeah. She said, I was thinking about that trip to Iceland, and then it says, in some ways it reminds me of Nagoya, which isn't either. So they seemed to travel quite a bit when they were younger, but so maybe he sort of settled down and she didn't, and she was wants to relive her youth. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I think it just goes back to her character, what I was saying. Like, I think it's just she has a very rich internal world. She's an escapist. And I think probably Kay is more grounded in sort of like the kind of more typical sort of world. Like when she's having her breakdown in the car garage, or in the parking lot, he's comforting her. He's very patient, but I don't get the sense he like really gets it, because I don't think he's ever experienced that. He's supportive, but you know what I mean? Like they're very different in that way. She's very distant, like she's in her own world a lot.
And she does mention parallel universes, doesn't she? Both
it ends with that
in the main body and at the end. Yeah.
That also struck me as true, because I kind of think too much about parallel universes and like close calls. I'm like, did I just die in a parallel universe because of that bus? Like these are thoughts that occur to me. So I was like, I get you, PJ.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to live a lot in my head as well, so I'm just like, I get this.
Yeah. It's there's so much in this story. It's so interesting, and in a way I didn't really miss the fact that there wasn't much of a plot. And I quite liked some other parts where she didn't preempt something that she was going to say, so she didn't all of a sudden she just changes the topic and changes the timeline, and bang, she's somewhere else and doing something different. I quite because it's not necessary. We soon catch up that she's somewhere else, so I do like that. But so because I didn't need a plot to keep me interested, because it's almost as if each phase of her life was an interesting little snippet, a little sort of I can't remember the word, but yeah, a little part of her life, and it was interesting and different, and each part of her life was very different to the other parts.
Yeah, I for me, if it had ended earlier or if it had ended differently, I probably would not be so annoyed at the lack of closure. There's something about this ending that fell flat for me, and I'm still having a hard time picking out what it was. And Annie, as you mentioned that the ending kind of felt flat for you too.
Yeah, it just seems a little abrupt in a way. And I think I know what you mean now when you said earlier about it feeling manipulative. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as say it was manipulative, but the thing that might make it feel manipulative is it has that like, will they, won't they get back together thing that I feel like we've seen a lot. So it feels a little bit like a forced ambiguous ending very abruptly. I think that's what it is. It just sort of like cuts off and it's like, we don't know. And it's like, okay. You know what I mean? Like that, there's like a whole like category of like really emotionally overwrought stories that do that like this is a super emotionally overwrought story because it ends on ambiguity. So this kind of has that going on as well. And the ambiguity is kind of just like ambiguity for the sake of ambiguity, because there's really no reason why you shouldn't tell us whether or not she gets back with Kay. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't add to the theme or to the story to leave that ambiguous.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't whether or not she gets back to Kay. For me, I kind of wanted it to end with her getting sick in something. Her mother gets sick at the end of her portion of the story. There's sickness throughout the story, and I was expecting something to happen to her, whether she got sick, whether she died, whether she fell into the water, just something to happen. And like you said, there is a large catalog of emotionally overwrought stories that end extremely ambiguously for no reason. If it had ended ambiguously with a reason, I wouldn't have felt manipulated. But I did feel like something was being held back from the reader just because you can.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I think the actual ending where she gets stuck with a hypodermic and she says, she's certain it's not HIV, but some flavor of hepatitis, possibly, some kind of fluid, but it couldn't tell whether it matched the lake water. So it was there's a question there. There's a hint of mystery, and then at the end, when in the final paragraph, when she said she was going to live for another 23 years, she could tell. I thought, okay, that's good. That's a okay ending. But then she says, or maybe 14. In some universes, 25. I just think, what? Why do that?
Yeah, it could have been cut right there. It really could have been. I agree with you, Gerald. And I felt like it changed the story by ending it non-optimally. It affected what I had previously written. Sometimes an ending, if it falls flat, like the rest of the story doesn't really feel affected. But I felt like this was in some way, which was disappointing for me. But at the same time, I see why it won. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. Carve went out on a limb on this one. This is not their usual Carve story. It is, it's a very honest story. It's about family. Those are things that they typically have a lot of. But the poetics and the way it's written is not a Carve story. And it's amazing. And I think this is one of the reasons probably why they do have those 2 contests a year, because they bring in guest editors to pick those stories. And you could really tell that this was a guest editor picking the story, because this is not the typical sounding Carve story. And I really appreciated that from them. I felt like that was like a huge step.
Yeah, I think that was another problem, because in the back of my mind, I knew it had won the competition. It's a big competition. So,
it's a big one.
So that also sort of said, why don't I get it? Why does it win this competition? What's so good? Yes, it's good. Yes, and I'm enjoying it. There's all sorts of different things, but I'm looking for that something special that makes it bam #1, and I just didn't get it at all.
I think it probably won because the language was so unique and so well done. And it was paced in such a way that you wanted to keep reading. And as a guest editor, I assume, having talked to people that edit journals, that when you're going through 2,000 submissions, and it takes a lot to make a guest editor pick up something and keep reading beyond the first couple sentences. And this story does that. Every step of the way, it keeps you going. Even though it lets you down at the last paragraph, it keeps you reading throughout the entire thing. And it's a story that stays with you for all the reasons Annie has said, for all that honest family, introspection and just the detail, and you can really visualize the dynamics. It stays with you. So even after you've read 500 more submissions, you probably still have this story in the back of your mind. I think that's why it won.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, Gerald. There is that, because we have read other stories, Carve or other journals or other places, other authors that can do both. That can do the really poignant observations of what it is to be human or what it is to be anything. Plus, what a crazy plot, it can do both at the same time. And I think that is my ratings coming down only a little bit, half a point, because there is a part of me that feels like I don't think if we had read this story when we first started this podcast, we would have liked it as much as we did. I feel like you have to be someone who reads a lot of stories to then get enjoyment out of it. This is not for
and that goes back to why I'm disappointed Remy's not here, because he's more of a pure reader. I also think that because we all dissect stuff and we all write, I think that also ups our enjoyment. If I wasn't a poetry head that gets into word to word detail, would I have appreciated that opening paragraph as much as I do? Would I have seen that craft? Or would I have just gotten disappointed because it was confusing, had a lot of weird punctuation, was hard to follow?
Yeah, I think this. I didn't like the first paragraph as much as you. I thought it was a brave paragraph. I think it was interesting, and it did draw me in as a reader, and I wanted to see what the hell this was on about. But I thought, I don't know what a potentialry is, even if it exists.
It's a sci-fi word she made up. You got to be more sci-fi.
Yeah, so we're I pictured it. You know what I pictured it as? As like Purgatory, but Purgatory for babies, before they get disseminated. Yeah. There's all these babies lined up, and then the spirit's okay, so which baby's gonna be yours? And you're I'm gonna pick that one. That's what I was picturing in my head, a baby purgatory.
but then that doesn't really sit with the rest of the story. It seems a bit out of, does it?
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're saying. So the first time I read the paragraph, I was a little disoriented because I didn't know what the story was about at all. And then later I'm like, this is really brilliant. So this is another story where there's a lot of stuff that on the first read through you miss, and on the second you're like, aha.
I see what you did there.
I get it now. Yeah. But that first paragraph is, and I think it's very brave to have like one of the things that you're only going to catch on the second read through be your opening sentence. But she throughout the story in her youth and even as an adult, she's, like I said, she's always dreaming of stuff. So like she's the girl in the other universe with the long hair who's a hero who can like cast fire spells, and she has like a squad of superheroes. So it's like part of her whole, like, she's always imagining things in these sort of fantastical ways. So it's kind of, so it is a little disorienting when you first read the story because you don't know she does this. So you're like, am I reading sci-fi? Do people go to an actual potentially area and pick out their babies? And you're like, no, she's just like, that's how she sees everything. But yeah, you're right that the first read through, it's like, I don't know what I'm reading.
I'll admit, I read that first paragraph twice.
Yeah. But I think it's very much in character with PJ. It's weird. I like PJ in my head, but not in my heart. Like, I like the way she was constructed.
Yeah.
But if I met her in person, I'd be like, get over yourself a little bit. Like, I think
she's a little cold.
She's cold and self-involved. Yeah.
And I think it's because of how she was raised. I think it's important that she's cold and self-involved. I think it goes with how a person would turn out if they were raised under these circumstances. And she's so well drawn, but yeah, she's probably not somebody I would enjoy hanging out with.
Yep. Even though she feels very real. Like, I don't doubt that this person exists. Like,
and I like Kai.
Yeah.
I like her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I hear a lull. Are we ready to rate, or is there anything else we should go over?
Yeah, I want to do like a modesty disclaimer too, which is like humble disclaimer, which is also, if we completely miss something though, like all three of us, please write in, because
tell us
what it is. What did we miss?
Because I want to redeem that ending. I want to like this story more than I do, because the writing is so flipping good. I want to get the story. So yeah, if somebody is like reading it, they're like, oh yeah, I totally get the ending. Yeah, we need it. Kick down with the knowledge.
Yeah. I'm ready to rate. That's my note.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I can go first. I don't know though. So I'm see, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm rating personally, right? On a personal level, for me, I think it's a 5. I really like the observations and the insights. The writing was really good. It was really clever. But you can do both. You can do great plot plus insights, and that didn't quite happen. But it was still really good. But I feel like if I was rating for like as a recommendation, it would probably go lower, because I don't think this is for most readers. But that sounds maybe snobby. I don't know. Try it.
I don't think it sounds snobby.
I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah, I do think that you're right. If we had read this last year, or when we first started, because we've been on the air that long, we would probably have an extremely different rating.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I loved the language in the beginning. The language in the middle was good and solid, not as good as in the beginning, but it was beautiful. The only thing that really caught me was that the ending was wrong. I didn't necessarily need a plot, because I'm not that person. I'm cool without a plot. But that ending, I think Gerald would have done really well being an editor and just crossed out those last couple sentences. I think it would have done good. And so, honestly, until that ending, I was ready to give it a 6, and I've got to drop it to a 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I've written 5 down as well, because I didn't want to rate it before I'd spoken to you to see whether it was my fault or not, and yeah, I think if the understanding of a story gets past the 3 of us, then it's probably likely that it's not. It should be more transparent, I think. So,
I think it's interesting that all of us went with 5s.
Yeah. Out of 6.
Have we all rated the same thing before? Like, usually we have some variance.
Normally
Oh, she froze.
Give her a minute. She'll come back.
Yeah.
Very. Hello?
Mm.
Hello.
Yeah.
We lost
Yeah,
you.
I was saying normally the variance is Rami. I think it's happened before where the three of us give the same and Rami's like, no.
When we're Remy. What do you think Remy would have rated it? I'm kind of curious. Should we like guess and then see what he really rated it?
Well,
I don't know.
I think Remy would have rated it like a 3.5.
I think 3.
yeah, I was going to say 3. Yeah.
This feels like a Remy 3.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it, and that's it.
Okay, Eddie, make sure you go into Slack and ask him because I totally want to know if we were right.
I don't even know if he's around right now, but yeah.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
Yeah.
Just ask him, and maybe he'll let us know, and then in time for us to put it on air because I totally want to know.
Yeah.
We'll get a bing
it's
while we're doing the quiz.
Yeah. Quiz time. Okay. What do you want to suggest for next time? Whenever that is.
Oh, shoot. 1 second. Eddie, give your suggestion. I got to find mine.
You're going to love it. It's Nightfall by your favorite Isaac Asimov.
I hate you.
I know.
More sci-fi.
Why would you do this to me?
Because I really liked his story. I want more.
That's just cold-hearted. That is so cold-hearted. You are just mean to me.
Sci-fi podcast.
Okay, 1 second, and I'll tell you. I had it. Where'd it go? I have the short story. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Me and my OneNote. I really need to organize my OneNote because this is just getting to be too long. I have too much stuff in here. I'm like, well, that's a short story. That's not a short story. Okay, here it is. 1 second. Sorry.
Live listeners, talk amongst
yourselves. You're going to love cutting this out, Eddie's.
But it'll be easy. It's a big chunk. Those are easy.
That's funny. Okay. The Dungeon Master by San Lipsite.
Okay.
Okay. Okie dokie. So we have, where's it gone? Right, I can do it, Maya here. We have a quiz, and the quiz is about phobias.
Ooh.
So the fear of needles is, of course, trypanophobia. You all knew that. So what I'm going to do, I've got 3 rounds, and I'm going to give you the phobia name, and I want you to tell me which of the 3 options it is.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So, yeah, I hope so. So, it's just a guessing game.
No, I'm here.
Okay, just checking. You need to move every once in a while.
Just have one of those sort of things, little things, desk things, aren't just moving in the background. Tick. Okay, so I'm going to start with Anais, and the phobia is anuptophobia. ANUPTA, anuptophobia. Is it the fear of staying single, the fear of floods, or the fear of infinity?
The fear of staying single.
Is correct. Well,
really? How did you know that? You sounded so sure of that.
I etymologied that bitch. I've done this before.
Oh, man. Freaking good school systems teaching Latin.
Ooh, I see mom's looking good already.
I say that she's cheating by virtue of having a decent school system.
Cheating.
Okay, Maya. Brontophobia, BRONTO.
It's not a fear of brontosauruses.
Brontophobia. Is it a fear of dinosaurs, a fear of slime, or a fear of thunder and lightning?
Thunder and lightning.
Is correct.
If you tell me it's dinosaurs, I'm going to strangle you.
No, it's thunder and lightning. Okay.
Oh, thank goodness.
Anais, right. Didascalenophobia.
You got to spell that.
D-I-D-A-S. Let's turn the brightness up a second. D-I-D-A-S-K-A-L-E-I-N-O. Phobia. Didascalenophobia.
All right. That's, I don't know. This is a hard one. What are my options?
Oh, okay. Your options are...
She's just saying that.
Your options are fear of justice, I've got the same bloody thing twice, right? Fear of
You got
justice,
fear of debating in there?
or fear of going to school, or fear of stings. Fear of justice, fear of stings, fear of going to school.
Fear of going to school?
Is correct.
Didact. D-I-D-A.
Yeah. Maya, Eurotophobia. E-U-R-O-T-O phobia. Eurotophobia. Is it fear of female genitalia, fear of hearing good news, or fear of red lights?
Female genitalia.
Yeah.
I know that's a thing.
Yeah, and you just etymologied that bitch too.
I'm just like, what's the closest to vagina dentata?
Okay. Well, final round, and it's 2-2 going into the final.
Oh,
Wow,
we
this is
might have a
exciting
problem.
Mm.
No, I
I
have
should have picked a better story.
I have a tiebreaker. Don't you worry.
Sure.
Yeah, I do. Right. Anise, hippophobia. H-I-P-P-O phobia. Hippophobia. Is it a fear of horses, a fear of hippos, or a fear of guns?
Is this the obvious, easy answer, or is this a trick? I'm gonna go with horses.
He's correct.
Yes.
Well done.
What was it?
Well,
Horses.
fear of horses, not hippos.
How would
The
hippo?
family. It's like the
But hippos aren't related to horses, are they?
no, but it's a horse-related word. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
good
understand.
question.
You need to explain the etymology to me later.
Okay, a final question, Maya. Hodophobia, H-O-D-O phobia, hodophobia. Is it a fear of bums or beggars, a fear of fog, or a fear of road travel?
Road travel.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're tied.
We're smart. We're really smart.
You know, when you said hodophobia, I thought of Hodor from Game of Thrones. Fear of Hodor.
I'm just so happy I kept up with Annie's. I feel really bright today.
This is good.
Yeah.
What's the tiebreaker?
Very, very good. The tiebreaker. Okay. How many recognized phobias are there? Anais.
Oh, wow.
200.
2000.
What?
Did we go right down the middle?
No. I'm laughing because we're going to be reading Asimov again. It's Anais is closer. It's 561.
Man, why would you do this to me? I want a real literary story.
What if this one's good though?
But the last one wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. It's really good. Okay, we're gonna read a really good Asimov story
Your
again.
definition of a good story needs to be recalibrated.
Okay, so
we read from Octavia Butler if you gotta go there.
I love Octavia Butler, but she's so modern that none of her stuff is free. Every time I try to find a favorite one by her,
maybe her stuff isn't free because it's good.
Wow. This is...
And the hate mail goes to mail@literary.roadhouse.com. Just put attention Maya in the subject line.
Okay, so we are reading Nightfall by Isaac Asimov. But before you go, tell us how many times you've been punctured in the comments section at literary.roadhouse.com. You can find out how many times we've been punctured by leaving a review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. And also leave a review so that others can find us too. It's all on you, listener. It's all your fault. If you want to find the common traits are among the members of our podcast family, then check out our other shows, the Literary Roadhouse Book Club and the Bradbury Challenge. And lastly, we want to buy a protective bubble so we never get punctured again. Support our bubble host project and podcasts at patreon.com/literary roadhouse. And as always, share this podcast with your distantly affectionate mothers. Until next time, read a good story.
Love it. Very good.
Yep.
Maybe is Maya frozen now?
I think so, yeah. She didn't hear the last bit.
Oh, that was good. That was such a good... Distantly affectionate mothers.
That's right. What episode is this?
Hang on. Let me
86? No.
No,
86
92.
was the Gooford. What?
92.
92. Where are my other? Oh, they're on my external hard drive. I remember this now. Yeah.
Okay.
Move them.
Good.
Okay.
So 92. There
Wow.
we go.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Well, I'll see you.
Yep.
Oh, stop
See ya.
broadcast.